Because she was broke, Laura never mentioned marriage. Until that day, I saw her casually crack open a bottle of wine that cost my entire annual salary. Turns out Laura was from a wealthy family, living in luxury all along. Her best friend asked, "Aren't you tired of acting poor for 5 years? When are you gonna wrap this up?" Laura casually looked up, maybe on the day of my engagement. I didn't freak out. I just booked a flight for the day she was getting engaged and went overseas. Heard later that on Laura's engagement day, she had a change of heart. She drove to an old apartment but found it empty. She practically lost it. While scrolling through my feed, a photo caught my eye. In front, there were a bunch of well-dressed folks, but in the back, a young woman was slouched on the couch, fiddling with her phone. One hand obscured part of her face, but her jawline and deep-set eyes were unmistakable. I hesitated, then compared it with some photos of Laura I had. I messaged my college friend, Henry, who had posted the picture. "Hey, is this your friend?" I highlighted the spot in the photo. For some reason, that part seemed deliberately made blurry by Henry. Surprisingly, Henry replied quickly, "Why you interested? It's none of your business." I said, "No reason. She just looks a lot like my girlfriend. Too much like her. I know Laura's features well, even down to her frown lines." Henry bombarded me with messages. "David, daydreaming much? My wife wouldn't even talk to her. Your little girlfriend with her mini paycheck couldn't touch her with a 10-foot pole. What, now reality hit you and you're dumping your girlfriend?" I cut off his sarcasm with a thank you gif. Just wondering. Nothing else. Henry was always competitive, especially since freshman year when he lost some popularity poll to my candid photo. Then he married a company's heiress, while I focused on dating Laura, the so-called poor girl. After that, he made his social media public almost like an act of charity, letting me see his posts. I texted Laura, "Are you coming home soon?" The pinned contact replied fast. She sent a picture of an office meeting room table with a crying cat emoji. "Still working overtime, go to bed early, don't wait up. You're working hard. Love you." I replied with hug and kiss emojis, then tucked my phone away. That's more like it. This was my girlfriend Laura, working hard like everyone else. How could she be connected to Henry's elite crowd? Later, I got a request to deliver something to the Queen's Club. I turned around and ordered a ride through the company app, as usual. Adult life at night was rarely yours alone. Besides love, most of it was taken up by stressful work. Getting out in the cold, I looked around. I'd heard of the Queen's Club. Everyone stepping inside was someone important. My boss likely got in just by knowing someone high up. I pushed open the red doors, the place staffed with well-dressed attendants. After explaining my purpose, they politely led me inside. As expected, I handed over the documents, pasted on a fake smile, and made a round of toasts. Deliveries didn't really require me personally, but good-looking guys were always needed at such gatherings. "John, this is David from our tech department. He's the guy for all your questions." When John lightly brushed my hand, I lowered my glass and discreetly moved away. Sometimes you can't outright reject things, even if you end up scrutinized. After a few drinks, I made up a reason to step out for air. Rounding a corner, I noticed a slightly open door. The brass door ring caught my eye, elegant and glimmering in the night. I barely glanced at it, about to walk by, but a voice floated out of the room. "Hilarious. You say David thinks Laura's got no money. That's why she won't marry him? He's a sharp guy." I heard them mention that I'd pulled out all my savings, over $195,000, to pay for a place, thinking it'd be a home for us. $1 million? Enough for a bathroom, maybe? I stood still, taken aback, and moved closer to listen. "You still wearing those shabby clothes? All of us have traveled abroad, and you're still playing pretend poor girl?" I thought about Laura wearing a cheap outfit earlier, with pants from an online store, and sneakers I queued up to buy her. I glanced down at my own clothes, all under $2,000 in total. Maybe I misheard? I clutched my phone, feeling the need to call someone. Then, I saw a figure lean in and casually pop open a bottle of wine. That motion exposed her full profile, revealing her attire. I involuntarily tightened my grip on my coat, knuckles turning white. My eyes were locked on the scene, but my throat was frozen, stopping any words. Laura glanced at the woman speaking. I've got my own rhythm, don't get in my way. You're so funny. Who can string someone along for 5 years? Didn't you say it was just a game at first? Have you really fallen for that broke guy? Laura's hand holding the cigarette paused for a second. Then she chuckled. What are you talking about? Even if you cared, could you actually marry him? I'm telling you, just end it now. Don't hold him up. Let him find someone good to marry. Gina, Laura exhaled smoke, lazily glanced at her. You talk too much. Gina gave her a smirk. You don't say much. But if you ever stand up for that broke guy again, I swear, girl, I'll slap sense into you. Gina continued, when are you gonna lay it out for him? Laura hesitated. On the engagement day, I suppose. Is he really the one? Yeah. How do you plan to say it? What you're doing isn't right. Not gonna say anything, just let Laura disappear. Fair enough. Not like he would have ever gotten involved with folks from our circle without some coaxing. Give him some money when you do. It's been 5 years. Don't leave him high and dry. These words felt like they were from another world. They crashed into my mind, indifferent and forceful. I looked at Laura, hoping she'd speak up and say something different. He's different, David. He's not like that. He's your legitimate boyfriend of 5 years. But no, she didn't argue back. She didn't say a thing. Standing not far from the door, I felt a chill run through my body as the cold wind filled my veins. I wanted to see through the smoke and make out her impassive face. The bare hawthorn trees outside were weighed down by snow, their branches unable to spring back up no matter how hard they tried. I pulled out the house contract from my bag. Tears started to fall, hitting the paper, and I wiped them quickly, afraid to ruin it. I always thought the reason Laura hadn't brought up marriage was because we were strapped for cash or because she was worried about convincing my parents. The other day, when my dad called, she heard every word. So her parents passed and her degree's lower than yours. Salary too, no house, no car. What do you see in her? Just her face. Is that it? With your situation, who couldn't you have? Come home. I've got plenty of girls to introduce. Each one better than her. I held the phone. Dad, she's getting a raise next month after this project. She's ambitious and treats me well. I like her. As for the house, we've saved enough for the down payment. Our combined housing funds cover the mortgage, so things are improving. After hanging up, I pulled out all my bank cards, spread them on the bed, and looked up at her. Let's get married. I've got money. Worst case, I'll take care of you. Laura was momentarily stunned. Something flashed in her eyes that I couldn't understand, but she only said, let's wait. Back then, I thought she wanted me to wait for her to climb higher, to marry me in style. But I didn't decipher the look she had. Now I realized that back then she was probably laughing inside. Laughing at my naive gullibility, my fiery passion, all for nothing. These past few days, I'd been planning how to give her a surprise she'd never forget. But I didn't expect that while I was dreaming of a cozy future with her, she was already plotting her escape from this game. It's truly laughable. I cried till I couldn't stop. I needed a lot of strength not to push that door open. I stepped back inch by inch, the truth weighing on me so heavily I could barely breathe. I lowered my head and dialed her number. Raising my head, Laura gestured, and everyone went silent. I kept my voice steady. Still at work? Laura's lazy voice came through. I am. Gonna be another hour or two. Why aren't you asleep? I wiped away my tears. I fell. I'm at the hospital. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Laura sit up slightly. Which hospital? She signaled for someone to hand her a coat. Laura hung up, stubbed out her cigarette, and her friend asked, where are you going? You just got here. Boyfriend's in the hospital, gotta go. What makes him your boyfriend? Before the sentence finished, Laura leaned against the doorframe, glancing lightly over her shoulder. That look was as chill as a cold night, freezing her friend's voice. I didn't go to the hospital. Instead, I took a cab home. The place Laura and I rented was a small one-bedroom. Near the entrance was a shelf lined with books. Those were from when I pushed Laura to self-study for her bachelor's through adult education. My dad wasn't wrong. Her education wasn't great. When I met her, she only had an associate's degree. Back then we were young. She seemed smart to me. She had a whole life ahead. She couldn't plateau at that level. Even if you're off to herd pigs, a bachelor's would earn you 500 more than an associate degree. I had to juggle work and stay up late to help her review. I even played English lessons while brushing teeth together in the morning to make the most of every second. Each time Laura did a problem set, I had to review alongside her. Time was short. We got it done in a month and a half. To celebrate, we had to scour every app for a coupon just to treat ourselves to hot pot. And now, looking at info Henry dug up, it all felt ridiculous. Laura, but I can't say her real name. I leaned on the couch, pressing my palms hard against my forehead, feeling a gnawing pain in my stomach. The door opened from the outside, revealing Laura, back breathless and empty-handed, having found nothing in the hospital. My phone buzzed with several missed calls from her. Leaning against the doorframe, she caught her breath. I watched silently as she approached, lifting my hands to cradle my face, her tense expression relaxing. "Where did you fall?" I knew I was being played, but I didn't care. She just played with my fingers and smiled. "Let me put some ointment on you, or the wound might heal too soon." In that moment, maybe I was too silently brave. It seemed she couldn't see the pain I was enduring. I watched her closely. She seemed so composed, like she'd never lost her cool over any tricky problem. I thought maybe hard and rough early years had forged her in different persona. Like, she wouldn't bat an eye if the sky came falling down. But I never considered that this laid-back attitude could be from extreme power and privilege. I pulled my hand away and looked forward. "Laura, my dad is pushing me to go home for a blind date." The words hung in the air. Laura's hand froze, and her smile didn't quite fade, but turned into a cold mask. But then I turned back to her, smiling through tears, filled with my usual love. I told him, "I'm only willing to marry Laura. I'm waiting for her to marry me." I kept looking at her. I said, "We bought a small house. Once we get married, we can move in. Then maybe we'll have a baby. Your parents will love it for sure. Boy or girl, it doesn't matter. If it's a girl, she'll have your big eyes. If it's a boy, he'll have my fair skin." I looked down, pulled out the contract from my bag. "See? I added your name when I bought the house. Laura, how can you repay me for these 5 youthful, reckless, true-loving years? Born at the top, every step you take is almost unnecessary, huh? Aren't you secretly mocking that everything I offer is just a flick of a finger during your indulgent days?" Laura's fingers moved, and she glanced down at the contract. It was a while before she looked up. "David, what?" I played it cool. "Pretty surprising, huh? At least now my dad can't say anything about you." Laura's scared look vanished. She went back to her usual self. "Yes, our David can really take care of me." Her voice was too soft, her tone too slight. I almost missed her words. "I never said I wouldn't marry you. But Laura, in what capacity would you marry me?" I leaned against the table, dialing a number. During the wait, I quietly watched Laura busy in the kitchen. Her cooking skills surpassed mine. When the call connected, I whispered, "I've decided, I can go to America." "Time?" I was a bit absent-minded until I caught Laura's gaze. Then I snapped back. January 28th, yes, that day. That was the day Laura was supposed to get engaged. By late night, the emotional pain spread physically. I pressed on my cramping stomach, biting my hand, nearly fainting from the pain. I vaguely felt a big hand quickly lifting me up, the usually steady voice now flustered. In a daze, many past memories flooded in. Laura and I didn't have a smooth ride in love. We once had a breakup. That was in the 2nd year of our relationship. It came out of nowhere when she suggested splitting. At that time, I was busy planning a rare getaway for us when I heard her say it. Felt absurd. She looked at me with distant eyes, like an outsider. I can't give you what you want. Just a moment ago, she was blaming herself for my burnt hand. I couldn't figure out what could hold us back, besides her lack of money. It's okay, we'll work it out together. We're so young, if we just work hard, we can have what we want. And I don't need you to have lots of money. She cut me off, lightly patting my head, like we'd never meet again. David, I'm sorry. I hope you find someone better. Back then, who wasn't hot-headed, thinking no one was irreplaceable? I didn't hold on, didn't cry, just acted calm and proud. Laura, in the end, you're just afraid you don't love me enough. Since that's the case, let's part on good terms. If there was overwhelming love, how could she abandon me without trying? I thought I was determined, sensible, because I usually weigh the pros and cons, abandoning anything not beneficial. But with Laura, all that failed. Post-breakup, lost touch, assumed we'd never meet again. But fate had other plans. It was an event I'd never attend, yet there was Laura in a waiter's uniform. I stared. She shuffled her tray. I'm a server. What a coincidence. I nodded, didn't speak, just walked past her. But I had an unshakable feeling that missing this chance might mean never loving again. For the first time, I gave everything going against logic for love. Suddenly, I stopped, pushed through the crowd, running back to her. Laura still leaned against the pillar, watching me reverse through people, running to her. I spoke firmly, Laura, I'll only ask once. Do you want to get back together? If you refuse, our paths end here. I'd kneel before love, just this once, no more next times. Laura stayed silent, then picked up a wine glass, lightly touching my brow. You're such a fool. Indeed, a fool, not seeing the hidden words in her can't give, not spotting her flimsy disguise. I woke in a hospital at dawn, birds already singing. Laura's skin was pale, and under white walls and dark hair, seemed even paler. But tonight, she looked worn out. He was okay. Why'd he suddenly hurt so much? She gently rubbed my belly when she saw I was awake. There was a thermos on the nightstand that I'd never seen before. Thinking back, it feels like there were always new things popping up at home that I didn't recognize. She looked where my gaze fell and explained, I ordered kanji delivery. If you're feeling better, do you want some? I turned my gaze away and moved my fingers slightly. Did you know the stomach is an emotional organ? Maybe my emotions are what's sick. She chuckled. Who bullied you? Tell me, I'll give him hell for it. It was a typical response. She used to say things like that all the time without even thinking. I never took it seriously. What's she gonna do? A young girl with nothing much to her name. How could she take revenge for me? We couldn't afford any rash actions with the potential for damages or medical bills. I preferred keeping the peace whenever possible. Except for that one time. I faced workplace bullying head-on, took the risk of getting fired to gather evidence, wrote an article and filed a lawsuit. But then, they turned the accusations back on me and crushed the effort. I was so broken that a simple question from her had me pouring out my frustrations in tears. Amazingly, things turned around. The company, for the first time, started an internal investigation. Then the police stepped in, and the manager who bullied subordinates was taken away. I resigned after that. Pulling the covers aside, I got out of bed and put on my shoes. She grabbed my wrist. Where are you going? To work. I leaned on the bed and looked up, smiling. I'm feeling much better. I need to hurry up and get back. Don't want to be late. A sick day costs $850, way too expensive, I laughed. David, don't be ridiculous, she reprimanded. You should rest. You've got work to do too, I nudged her. No calling in sick. Laura consulted a doctor, and that doctor respectfully followed after her. Many details I missed before suddenly became clear, like the delicious smell of kanji in front of me, the homemade wine a coworker gave me stored away, and the handmade pastries you never see outside. On my way to work in the morning, I saw Laura waiting by the road as I came out of the garage. She'd said she didn't like driving, so we bought this car. Apart from occasional weekend outings, we barely used it. A little later, a black Bentley pulled up in front of her, and a driver got out, politely opening the door for her. The car didn't head to Laura's company. It followed the Bentley into the inner city and went straight to a remote residential area. There was a no-entry sign at the entrance of the residential area. All I could do was park by the roadside and watch her car go in. Sitting in my car, I recalled helping her tirelessly revise job applications back in the day. Every resume she submitted, from job objectives to work experience and personal advantages, I refined each word in agonizing detail, rather than taking the throw-everything-at-the-wall approach. Back then, almost every resume would get through the target company's screening. But no matter how often I could predict 80% of the interview questions or do countless interview practices, she'd still flub the interviews. In the end, only this unremarkable company was willing to hire her. At least the pay wasn't high, but all the benefits were maxed out. Laura wasn't a big spender. Her salary went into my account, and I'd set aside some pocket money for her. What once seemed like acts of love and support now revealed she didn't really need them after all. I drove to my usual old ramen shop and the boss greeted me warmly. The usual? How come you're alone today? I'd loved this ramen shop since college, and after meeting Laura, I'd almost take her there weekly. She's busy, I responded, ordering the meat sauce noodles, extra green onions, and cilantro. Midway through my meal, I asked casually, "Hey, wasn't this area supposed to be cleared out a couple years back? How's the shop still open?" The boss glanced at me, wiping his sweat with the towel around his neck. Honestly, it's a mystery to me too. Suddenly one day, I got told to come back and reopen. Otherwise, with my worth now, I wouldn't need to keep this place running. I stayed silent, quietly finishing my bowl of noodles. That's why, when the hallway lights flickered and the floorboards creaked, we could rent a nice place for a steal. When my grandma came to the city for surgery, the blood bank that was critically low got replenished overnight. She even ended up in a special care unit because of some emergency medical research. Back home, I dug out several brand-name watches from the bottom of the wardrobe. At that moment, I had no doubt about their authenticity. When Laura first gifted me one, I thought she didn't know better, just wanted me to have what others did. Back then, to not hurt her pride, I wore it boldly to work, making a show of it in front of her. She seemed pleased, and her eyebrows danced with a smile, sending me a few more after that. At work, someone keen-eyed took a look at my watch. "You can't find this watch. It'd run you close to 2 mil with the extras. You some kind of secret tycoon?" I laughed it off, waving my wrist. "Nah, it's a knockoff from China. Not worth much." After that incident, I casually hinted even replicas aren't cheap. "Don't waste your money. I don't need these." Laura glanced at me and smiled softly. "Keep them. They might come in handy someday." And indeed, they did. The money I'd saved over 5 years wasn't enough to buy a house, but 2 or 3 of these watches were. I blinked, the emotions that curled up inside me last night finally taking form today. It was resentment. I realized how deep my resentment ran. "Laura, if you were just deceiving and playing me, maybe I wouldn't feel this deep resentment. But you mixed a hint of truth in all these lies. Who were you trying to bind?" I'd be filled with regret. Regret over the youth I charged through with courage. Coming to that realization, I knew I had to fulfill some unachieved dreams before tumbling off the cliff. From the bedroom to the kitchen to the living room, I began clearing any evidence of life from the spaces I'd so long treaded. But this rental held far too many memories and tokens of love. When the sun set into the bedroom, the dim lights flickered while a woman poured all her endless energy into loving you to death. It was those snow-filled nights, running home in laughter, pushing open the door with urgency, then kissing against it until breathless. It's like splitting a watermelon in half but fighting over one half with a spoon while ignoring the other. It's like sipping on a 12 cocktail until you're tipsy. I cradled her face and kissed her gently until she was nestled in my arms. We both fell onto the couch, her laughter shaking from her chest. At that moment, I decided to leave the memories as just memories. The door lock turned, and I glanced back to see a stranger named Laura standing at the entrance. Even though she looked at me like the million times she had before, I knew it wasn't her. She walked over, crouched beside me, and glanced at my suitcase by my feet. "Are you traveling for work?" I shook my head, just packing up some useless stuff, clearing space. She dressed even more shabbily than yesterday. Her jacket was under $300, pants just over 100, but the lingerie was pricier, $39 each, since I like to choose quality when it comes to clothes close to the skin. Maybe the biggest hardship in her 2 decades of fancy living was the boredom of dating a poor guy. She had to lower her living standards and work hard to weave a web of lies. In that sense, I didn't lose out. My girlfriend, besides being a liar, was good-looking, in great shape, quite talented, and could handle both fancy and homey situations. "Laura, would you come with me tomorrow to try out some wedding dresses?" Her eyebrows and eyes seemed to have a silvery frost under the light, and even her frown didn't take away their charm. She smiled, somewhat helplessly. "David, I'm still here about the marriage thing. Isn't it a bit rushed for dresses? Just trying them doesn't mean we have to get married. What are you afraid of?" Maybe it was my first time joking about the whole not getting married thing, like it didn't even matter. Laura was stunned for a moment, then playfully coaxed. "Are you mad at me? I'm just thinking, this path isn't finished yet. Who knows what the end will be? Maybe we're not right for each other. Maybe there'll be someone else in my future." She squeezed my fingers hard, chuckling angrily. "Shut up. I'll go with you. I'll go. Okay?" I didn't joyfully hug her like I used to. I just bowed my head and continued packing. Henry asked me why I kept asking about her. He advised, "Even if you're gonna cheat, shouldn't you find someone on par with yourself? Why dig into this one? She's been to Milan with her fiancé checking out wedding dresses. Don't embarrass our alma mater." That's when it hit me. When she said she was on a business trip, she was really with another guy, getting those dresses made. I made a last-minute appointment at the dress shop for an evening time slot. And I stayed home all day long, quietly sitting in the living room until nightfall when Laura came back from work. Marrying Laura had been my guiding principle all through my youth. I had imagined wearing a crisp suit, walking toward her holding flowers. And just like now, in the buzz of the crowd, I would look at her with teary eyes and ask, "Do I look handsome?" Laura didn't answer. She turned to look out the window. Harsh winters and tough lives. Things she never cared to see. Standing within her sight was a boy only dressing up for her. But she suddenly didn't have the courage to look back. "Laura, take one last look at him. This is probably the last and only time. He won't belong to you anymore." The Millers' engagement party was packed with guests and lively as ever. It was Henry's first time stepping into the so-called famous family, though it wasn't some off-limits old mansion. The engagement do was set in a fancy banquet hall, luxurious and discreet. Following his wife, Henry finally laid eyes on the Miller heiress David always asked about. The woman wore a lavish handmade gown, jewels making her appear a little colder. He couldn't even say hello, finding even an extra glance inappropriate. As he stepped outside for some air, he caught another glimpse of Laura through the crowd. She picked up her phone, frowning deeply. Henry, phone in hand, was soaking up all the gossip from the street. Suddenly, a name jumped out at him. He unbelievably pulled his wife. "Anna. Did they say David? Is the kid Laura's been fooling with David, the one from my school?" Anna shrugged it off. "Not sure, probably." As Henry recalled David's constant inquiries, it felt like the pieces had fallen into place. This world sure is full of coincidences. He had put the pieces together about the affair. "So, does everyone in your circle know that she's been toying with a guy for 5 years? People have heard a thing or two, but no one cares. It's just a fling. She'd return eventually." Then, coincidentally, Laura was striding quickly outside. Henry suddenly shouted at her furiously, "Stop right there, you jerk!" Anna was startled, rushing to pull him back. "What are you doing? You don't even like David, why the hero act?" "I don't like him. Henry admitted, glancing at Laura. But that doesn't mean I can't feel for him. 5 years, that's a man's most precious 5 years. Not 5 hours, not 5 days. It's 5 full years of youth. Do people with power need to stomp on something to make life interesting? I always wondered, David, someone with looks and talent, why were there no suitors after school? In college, lines of girls queued up outside dorms for him. Wealthy women outside of school fought to treat him. Suddenly after graduation, it's like he was cursed or something, keeping a poor girl as a partner. Guess you were the reason all along, took him away firsthand, huh? Anna tugged on his sleeve. Henry, tone it down. Our project is gonna go south if you keep this up. Henry throws a backward elbow. I look down on you, Laura. You all make fun of David, but I'm making fun of you. You're a coward. Laura doesn't get angry, just looks at him calmly. When did he find out? The man in front of her doesn't speak, and Laura doesn't push it. She had just gotten a call from their landlord. Isn't today the day you're moving out? I'm here to inspect. But no one's here? She has more urgent matters to deal with. A few days ago, she had tried to talk to him before leaving on her business trip, but just couldn't. We'll talk when I get back. At that time, David gently agreed. He was too sweet and quiet, bottling up all his internal screams. Laura steps out, but turns back to this man she's never met before. If I had been myself from the start, this story might have been just 5 seconds, not 5 years. Henry doesn't get it, so he jots it down on his phone to repeat later. The car speeds towards the rental house but suddenly changes lanes halfway. Then it races madly towards the airport. The flight is already boarding, and the flight attendant welcomes each passenger with a sweet voice. I blocked Laura on every app and locked the past in that tiny room. Maybe she's realized it by now. Maybe she's busy with the comings and goings and will only think of dealing with outside matters once the ceremony's over. Without any surprises, the plane takes off as planned. As the wings merge into the clouds, the roar drowns out everything. Unwritten storylines and the eyes of worldly prejudices are lifted up high and gently set down. Before the plane took off, Henry called angrily. What are you running for? She's the one who tricked you. And you just switch off your phone and skip the country? You're not the one in the wrong here. If I were you, I wouldn't care about Laura. I'd crash her engagement party today and make sure no one has a good time. At the very least, make some noise. With her family background, a fingertip's worth could keep your family set for 3 generations. It's all money, who cares about love? Are you crazy to pass up the money? I always thought he didn't like me. So I figured if he knew a woman had fooled me for 5 years, he'd gloat. Thanks, Henry. My voice is calm but firm. Even though some bad things have happened, I don't want to deny those 5 years. Those were 5 years of giving my all. I don't wish for it to end in a completely twisted fashion. Henry says nothing. He knows better than anyone. Some things aren't worth making a fuss over, because nothing will come of it. Everyone knows about it, but nobody cares. What's the point of making a scene? They've already mocked it for so long. I won't serve it up for them to lament. Even if everyone knows I got the short end of the stick, nobody will stand up for me. Nobody will fight my corner. Besides, with families like that, a small ruckus is amusing, but a big one that damages the reputation? The fallout's too much for someone like me to handle. In my half year in America, I've returned to the lab doing what I do best. Kathy, the senior who invited me here, sometimes wonders why I wasted 5 years on other stuff when I could have produced results sooner. I jot down data, casually smiling. We all take a winding path at times. As long as we turn back in time, it's not too late, right? I allow for a few brambles in the long journey of my life, even if crossing them leaves me bloody. But who's to say it won't bring a whole new me? As long as I still have the courage, I'll boldly move forward, with a long and bright path ahead. Time is so busy, I barely have time to think of anyone. Until one day, an international package knocks at the door. After 6 months, I receive this nameless delivery. I tear it open. There are 2 full payment real estate contracts with my name on them. One is for an apartment on a prime financial street, the other for the once deposit-only marital home. The apartment I live in now is very quiet, especially at night. For the first couple of months here, I barely slept. I never pretended not to have hope. I shamelessly hoped at some moment she might just show up. On the streets of this foreign country, I wondered if one day I might turn around and see her. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, the sound of tires on the ground makes me instinctively pull back the curtain. But all I see is emptiness. Only then do I realize, someone like her wouldn't lose her mind for anyone. 5 years of slipping into the mundane was already a rare exception. Her life has given her too much, what she's lost is inconsequential. To casually pick up and lazily let go, that's the right way. Locking both contracts in the cabinet untouched, I still don't reach out to her. I knew from the start my time in America wouldn't be long, but I didn't expect it to be this brief. Kathy repeatedly confirms. It's time. Now's the best moment, someone's contacting us from back home, and most importantly, the entry permit's approved. Who knows how long it'll take next time? I nod. Let's head back then. Kathy's company is registered and located in Shanghai, and we land. Already having a product foundation, plus an influx of significant funds, the company's progress is swift. The faster the pace, the more hands we need. I'm almost too busy to touch the ground, needing to oversee recruitment beyond just technical matters. Kathy then tells me the investor wants to meet. She's requested to see you, strange. I should have figured, the investor Kathy mentioned so frequently 6 months ago, with an amazingly good temper and character, who didn't question a single thing about the company. I toy with the pen cap, hesitantly. Can I not go? Kathy grits her teeth. If it were someone else, I might shield you, but with her, no way. I never imagined how or where I'd see Laura again. Like her friends said, if not for deliberate opportunities, she and I would always stand at opposite ends of a revolving door, never crossing paths. David, that's Laura. Laura, this is David, the guy in charge of tech at the company. Ever since he joined a year ago, our progress has been lightning fast. Laura looks nothing like she used to. It's like that perfectly tailored suit she's wearing has severed her from the past. She's still laid back and easygoing, but there's this new distance that makes her hard to approach. Her gaze is still as intense and straightforward as I remember. I reach out my hand with a polite smile. Nice to meet you, Laura. I'm David. Laura keeps her hands in her pockets and doesn't say a word, only scrutinizing me with those sharp eyes. She's upfront about it. Talking with him is a hassle. Kathy opens her mouth to speak but quietly leaves the room. As she opens the door, she meets 2 pairs of eyes. Gina gestures for her to leave. The other eyes curiously ask, "What's going on?" Gina keeps it brief. Laura's been restricted from leaving the country. They found a way to bring her back. Is it serious? Nah, with Laura's mom in the picture, it's gonna be tough for this guy. She used to not care about him, but now she's laid down the law. Doesn't matter if she doesn't marry. It can't be just anyone. Laura extends a hand to me without hesitation, as if I had just been away on a casual trip. Cooled off? She asks. Can we make up? I frown, staring at her without moving. This was my fault, I apologize, she said, gripping my fingers out of habit. I glanced down, noticing her 10 fingers. Initially, I had so many questions like why me and why 5 years. But later, I realized asking wouldn't change much. Laura, I think we've been over for a while. I've already let you go. No need to struggle with pretending or how to disappear without any loose ends. I no longer know where the line is between your facade and your true self. I never agreed to your decision, she responds. You don't need my agreement, just like when you barged into my life in the first place. Time heals, but it takes a long time. At least, the sleepless nights over the past year weren't enough to fade the pain. Please don't look for me again. I back up a step. This is as dignified as it will get. And if I insist? She pushes, closing the distance between us. I'd never considered this possibility, so I scrambled to think of a way out. But then she chuckled silently, putting a hand over my darting eyes. Don't worry. I won't do that to you. But David, you still owe me one wish. If you're willing, she said softly. I just nodded. We both knew she couldn't quite bring herself to terminate things completely. We should have seen it coming, dragging it out while looking for a way to break free. For a long time, I didn't see Laura. But the matter of that wish lingered like an invisible thread between us, waiting to be fulfilled. In the meantime, I met up with Henry. To my surprise, he got divorced. Surprised? He asked, sitting across from me with a calm expression. I never doubted she loved me, but that didn't stop her from loving someone else too. Everyone advised me to turn a blind eye, saying what matters most is holding power. Those are just distractions, they'd say. Every woman in this scene has someone or something on the side. But I ain't Henry. I can't ignore it. I can't take the sand in my eye. He said he took half the assets and lived life on his own terms afterward. But how can a person who never knew love be bothered by a little dirt in their eyes? Time passed until autumn colors filled the world. I got a message from Laura, and it made me think back to her birthdays. She'd seldom make a wish. She'd push the cake to me, telling me to wish for something. I'd shout out something like, "May Laura and David be together forever and never part." She never wanted for anything. There was nothing in this world she needed to wish for. I couldn't guess what she wanted from me. That was until I returned to the apartment. Everything was the same, even the angle of the sunlight. Dishes were on the table, with the clatter of pots and pans from the kitchen. Instinctively, I went over, leaning on the door frame, watching her in the kitchen. She spoke without turning. "Almost done. Just one more dish," just like she always did. Laura's cooking isn't exactly gourmet, but at least it's edible compared to mine. Dish by dish, I ate. She didn't eat, just watched me. It felt like any ordinary day that used to be so mundane, now with an apocalyptic undertone because of our separation. "Have you always known how to cook?" I asked. "No." She shook her head. "Billy, my childhood caretaker, taught me. He thought I was sick when I told him I wanted to learn. Honestly, your cooking isn't very tasty, but you always seem to enjoy it." As the room got darker, neither of us turned on the lights. We sat in the corner of the carpet. "I should go," I said. "David, all these years I wasn't completely insincere." I knelt down, tracing her eyebrows with my finger. "So are we getting married?" "No," she admitted, leaving us with silence instead of promises. But if I asked Laura, she would have loudly said yes. I smiled at her, tears rolling down my face. She loved me so much she would have wanted to marry and grow old together. You know better than anyone, the ending is set in stone. It's just the journey that's different. Sometimes I wish there really was a Laura in this world. She'd hold me tight, a hug so fierce like we were merging our souls together. One wrong step after another. Some people were never meant to meet, to know, or to fall in love. But you had to break the barriers, push yourself to exhaustion, till you ended up battered and bruised. She released me, gave my head a gentle pat. "You keep the things I gave you. That way, in the future, if your girlfriend doesn't have much, she won't have to suffer. But she shouldn't rely on your money, be lazy, or lack ambition. Before you get together, at least find out about her family, ask about her income. If you can't find out, let me know. Don't just dive in headfirst without asking anything." "I will." I knew she was watching me, but I didn't look back. I just kept moving forward. The phone rang, and I picked it up. "I used to try to get you guys to break up, but you wouldn't. You really cared about her. Now you break up just like that? Did she bully you?" "No, she didn't. We just weren't right for each other anymore." "Is it about money?" "I've thought about it. No, money is no big deal. You think I nag about this because of money? I just didn't want you struggling with her. Dad, after we broke up, we haven't been in touch much. I can't find her." "How could that be?" "Why not? Some people are just passing through. But they leave a heavy mark, and that becomes an unforgettable chapter in your life. Laura's not the kind to cling. Some people you can't hold on to, let them go with grace. However, losing someone is a process, slowly piercing your thoughts over time. Even though she didn't let those damp emotions spread unchecked. Just that day, Billy suddenly asked her enthusiastically, "Does your guy still like red date pastry?" The dates fell from the tree today. I picked some. They'll be fresh. She stopped in her tracks. The regret of losing him washed over her like a tide, her heart slowly bleeding with tiny pricks of pain. No more. Billy, there's no guy who loves red date pastry anymore.